Yeah, you got to hustle, right? And so that's the main problem
Uh-huh.
is the people who don't have everything I have aren't doing, um, you know, they've denied God and so are reaping
Mhm.
the consequences. And so that's the takeaway. That's my Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram leadership takeaway. Unless it's from Adam Irwin, I like his stuff. Adam Irwin, get his stuff, listen to his stuff. He just got his master's in leadership of, I don't know, squirrels. I'm not sure what.
I get it. I get it. He's the son you wish you had.
Mm.
And that's the intro.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Odd Testament podcast. My name is Ryan.
And my name's Eric.
My name's Greg. Okay.
And this is the place where we dive into the odd, strange, curious, weird stories of the Bible. And whether you're here for a fresh perspective on scripture, or you're new to faith, or you're exploring faith, or you just want to laugh, whatever brought you here, we're glad that you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing good. Living life.
I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, but I think I like it.
Gosh, why do we do this? Why do we do this podcast? I don't even know, guys.
You know what? I know this doesn't make it evergreen, but it is Easter week for all of us. It's Holy Week, and so it's it's Super Bowl Sunday for churches. And can I tell you, there's something inconvenient about this weekend. It's also WrestleMania weekend. Okay, WWE, and you guys can judge all you want, but man, I am pumped. Okay, and so I got a lot to look forward to this weekend.
Hey,
I'm ready.
That'll preach, Eric. WrestleMania on Easter weekend. What did Jesus do? He wrestled the keys to hell away from the enemy of our souls.
Come on, Pastor.
Right? He beat death, hell, and the grave, and
Pastor,
he is the champion.
Let's go. Come on.
Is it an accident that WrestleMania is happening? Right?
Listen, there's no accidents in the kingdom of God. Okay,
it's a conspiracy. I'm just bringing it back. This is whole.
Do you want to talk about conspiracy theories, Greg?
What about them? Again?
Vaccines, yay or nay?
Am I pro-vaccine? I pro?
Are you
removing things like polio?
Yeah.
Do I believe in the study and the work of brilliant people over generations? Do I believe that there are people who have spent their entire lives dedicated to tiny things that have made people that people are still alive today? Do I believe in germ theory, in spite of the reticence and the just absolute pride of male doctors back in that time when they weren't able to figure out why female patients were dying in childbirth because they, I don't know, were doing autopsies, not washing their hands and going directly to childbirth. I believe I am pro-vaccine. So
I thought you were going to end it with no.
Yeah, you're right. There's no way Big Pharma could have their hands in it, and they want to keep people sick so they can get rich. There's no way that's going on, huh?
Both can be true. You can have a wicked evil corporation and really good scientists who are doing really good work who have no intention to harm and cause harm.
You are coming to our side, Greg, and you don't even know it. You're coming to our side.
I'm not. I can believe that there are obvious, I don't have any emotions about this. Yeah.
And I'm making a big joke of it, right? Like I'm just
No, it's one of those that, like trigger. You just go,
Yeah.
oh, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't know her, but my dad, who's 90, had a sister who died of polio. The vaccine stopped that, not death, but overall. Yeah. So, and there's tons of story. It doesn't matter.
Seems like circumstantial evidence there.
Anecdotal evidence is what
Anecdotal.
Yeah.
Well, the circumstance too. Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Texas.
So,
well, before we offend
I
anyone
like
else,
life. I like people being safe. That's where I'll end.
Yes.
There you go.
Before
Whatever
we offend
that means.
anyone else and get
Whatever
our
that
podcast
means.
canceled,
Yeah,
Eric.
exactly. Sorry.
Eric, you have a
yes.
You have a get to know you question today.
I do have a get to know you question. Okay.
Get to know you.
Okay. I need to prepare to turn my headphones down every time, and I miss it every time. I know it's coming up, you'd think by this episode I'd get it.
Getting to know you. Getting to know you. Getting to know you. Getting to know you.
Okay, I do have a question. This is a little bit of a personality test so that you can overthink your answer a little bit, but I'm not going to tell you what it is ahead of time. But the question is, if you could have one of these superpowers, what would it be and why? So the first one is invisibility. The second one is flying. And then the last one is time travel. Okay.
And these are our only options.
These are your only options. You can only pick one. So again, invisibility, flying, and time travel. So forward and backwards in time, flying. You can go to great heights. And let's say you could fly at the speed of like a prop plane, like a crop duster. We're in Nebraska, so that's our probably. So you're not like flying like a jet engine or anything like that. Like, so you can fly fast, but it's not, you're getting to, Mach whatever. And then invisibility, you can just turn invisible. No need to remove the clothing, just invisible or not invisible. So
I'm going to go process of elimination here. I feel like if I had the ability to time travel, that's too much responsibility for me. The ability to affect like not just the past, but the future, like that scares me, right? And so
your time travel is
depending on
I was going to say your time travel's butterfly effect, which is
yes,
if you go back, you will affect the future, but not Avengers Endgame, which is the past. What the current is already assumed you went in the past already.
Yeah, one timeline versus
whatever you do is I don't have an answer for that, but that is your more butterfly effect time travel.
That's the way I see it. Yeah. So like people say all the time, yeah, if I could go back in time, I'd kill baby Hitler. Like, okay, but what if an even crazier person, which is hard to think about, hard to believe, what if an even crazier person like came up, rose to power in his place, and it would change everything, right? Like I don't want to be, I wouldn't want to be responsible for that. I don't think I could carry that load emotionally, mentally. So that
some of this, right?
What's that?
The Flash.
Yeah, he can
time
Flash
travel and the effects of it.
Yeah, he can run so fast he can go back in time. And in the way those comics do is butterfly effect. So if he changes one aspect, then it changes the whole world of comics. Okay, so no time travel.
So that one's out. And then I feel like I could, as an introvert, I could really get down with the invisibility, right? Like but I don't know how good that would be for my mental health. down the road. If I'm constantly just, I don't feel like being around people today, just go invisible, like I don't know how good that would go for me. So
Sure.
I'm going to choose flying because I think that's going to be the best for everybody. I could, bypass buying plane tickets and stuff like that, so I'm going to go for the easy, low hanging fruit one. Flying.
So process of elimination, not because you want to, but because you don't want to do the other two.
Yes. If I could choose any, it would be super strength. I would be the dang Hulk. So.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah. Geez, those are weirdly tough. Not invisibility, because unless I'm a spy, I can't think of a really useful why.
Well, now you can become a spy.
Yeah, the ethical, moral, who are you working for kind of thing. Unless you're working for yourself and you're selling information, kind of a information mercenary. That doesn't seem like. And then, geez, you're gonna die. Someone's gonna murder you. I don't want to do anything that creates a situation where I have to do tons of work just to stay, just to stay alive because people are after me. Like I have sometimes even in life, people do things that increase the stress on their lives. Not normal, like I get a job and it's stressful, but I'm talking about you make decisions that going forward, you now have to protect. So easy one is a lie, cheating or something like that. Now you have to protect this lie and it just ruins your existence. So that, to me, invisibility only leads there. So that's the spy.
Sure.
No. So I'm going to go time travel and academic reason. I just got asked last night about the literacy rate during when Jesus walked the earth.
That's a good question.
And I know I've read something about it, and that I read multiple. The base is like 3%, but that's all of the Roman Empire at that time. And it doesn't take into account Jewish kind of teaching synagogues, how they raise kids and the education and things like that. So the thing I read, do not take this, what I'm getting ready to say, as good data, because I'm going off memory and I can't find it. But I felt like it was like 80% was their opinion, but all we can get is opinion on it.
Sure.
So the reason it's relevant is, one, just interesting. And then two would be, did the gospel writers and were the apostles capable of writing the letters that they did? And so it's interesting information, and just the data, that. So
kind of fun.
Time travel, just because I'm curious about what existence is like and things like that. And fly, but every once in a while it peters out. It just kind of and now you're falling, and then it kicks back in. And the same thing for time. All of these, then you're good until suddenly it's not. And
that like Spider-Man 2 problem where web starts,
like it feeds off of
out.
vitamin C or something. Like who knows? So, and it takes you don't know that. Suddenly you can do it. Then you figure out, oh, I can't. So you got this pseudo comedy. So I'm writing a movie here, guys.
For sure. There you go. Hey. Sell it to Hollywood. They're looking for IP.
Do we get royalties if this takes off? I mean, since
we have proof now.
we helped inspire this thought, so we get a piece. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I've actually heard of like some podcasts. Like I listen to a few comedy improv podcasts, and they'll come up with an idea that's really funny, and it takes off, and like the host and whatever the guest is, they'll go, hey, like, I think we should do something with that idea. I'll show you the recording. We'll write some stuff, and then we'll go and pitch it, and then they'll sell the pitch. So, anyways, okay. So already knowing the answers, I am still choosing flying. I don't really have like a fear of heights. I have a fear of falling and not being in control of it. So if I fly, like I have no problem standing on like on top of a mountain and looking down, or when I'm on a roller coaster, when I'm at the top is actually where I feel probably the most safe, because I'm like, this is the place that they put the most work into outside of that crazy turn. So great. Like this is like, so heights are fine. It's and what makes roller coasters fun is that, oh, this drop has like a crazy thing. So I would love to fly. Like most of my favorite superheroes, I mean, if you are on the YouTube, you know Captain America doesn't fly, but that's his only fault. That's the only thing that makes him not the best superhero in the world. So, but I would choose flying. Okay, well, let me break down real quick. Just going through, and this is just kind of the picking a superpower and even strength. I'll read the strength one just so you can kind of maybe hear something. I just like these three as far as asking the question today. So if you chose invisibility, generally you are probably an anxious person and you're lacking some confidence, and so you want to hear what you normally wouldn't be able to hear. And so yes, you're probably like an individual introvert and things like that, but there's probably some, you know, self-confidence there. The other side of it is you also might be a little bit of like a class clown, because you, depending on your answer, you probably want to use it for like pranks or to like joke with somebody. So it's actually a way for you to be extroverted. So the positive is that you want to be more fun and you want to use it not for, again, these are all that you're not planning to use it for devious means or anything like that. Flying, it says, but I don't believe this first part, those who aspire to fly love to exercise. And I'm like, what? That's definitely not me, but they're dreamers. They live head in the clouds. They want to be able to reach destinations that they normally wouldn't be able to reach. Problem with them is they're probably overly independent and don't know how to live with others very well, and prefer to hang out in the clouds with birds and airplanes than down on the ground with people, metaphorically. Or at least I'd hope so.
Ryan, do you feel exposed?
Yes.
You feel like you just got
100%.
But yours was by default, like so. But you can definitely still be the that. Okay, so the time traveler. They say, I swear I'm not judgmental in this article, but they're notably curious. And so they want to, most people who want to do time travel want to go backwards, not forwards. They want to know what has happened, not what is going to happen. So Back to the Future lied to us.
I don't think the future's been written. So, and that's clearly an opinion. But anyway.
And so they say they're adventurous, they're open-minded, they want to be knowledgeable, so that they can help people or answer questions that they've always had. Downside is that they often don't appreciate what is right in front of them. And it is usually trying to find those answers are a way to deal with current stresses. And so
you shut your filthy mouth. You shut your filthy, keep my emotional status out of your mouth.
Sorry, Will. Okay, I'll read the super strong one because that would have been Ryan's choice. I just didn't put it because I didn't want to have a bunch of crazy options. So superpower, you you were probably an athlete in your earlier life or currently an athlete. And so what you realize is that most of your limitations were based off of how strong you were and able to perform that way.
I want his screen to just be on so we see his reaction. He's nodding right now.
That's right. You probably don't have a whole lot of fears or phobias. You can naturally just like take on things that scare most people. So maybe not that you don't have any, but the things that scare people don't usually scare you. And again, this is anybody who would have chosen strength.
He's definitely afraid of the dentist.
And most people are, you know.
So I've realized that I'm in the fight or flight stuff, I'm definitely a fight person
Mm.
because I'm not fast enough to run away. So I have to fight.
So you'll fight the bear.
Yeah.
You don't need to be faster than the person next to you. You'll just be like, you know what, you're good. I'll take care of this.
In any setting, I would probably be the slowest person. So I have to fight.
Yeah, it's a game of time too. That's what I've learned about running. The downsides with this is that you're usually people who would choose strength are usually bulldozers, meaning they will usually be the overpowers in conversations, especially in leadership settings. If not controlled, they'll be the person that seizes power, and once they have that, have a problem with letting go of that, and so it ends up being a little intimidating. So people who would choose that as their superpower. So anyways, what are your guys' thoughts? Is that too revealing, or does that work? Does our audience know too much about us now?
No, I think it's good. I think
No.
it's fun. Yeah. Let's create this for let's turn these into Enneagrams. Look, this episode is about how can we add income streams to our existence. And so and this is going to be oriented toward dudes.
Sure.
We're tired of hearing about you're an 8-2 or whatever your little combinations are. We're tired of your discs. We do those at our corporate jobs. Give us some superpower. Dude, what are you? I'm a strong flyer. That's what I am,
I'm a primary flyer with a secondary psychic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love
exactly. That's what. Absolutely. So we need to create tests.
I like it. I like it. Anytime we can squeeze money out of people, that's what I've learned about being a pastor. And so that's
Yep. You can do it for football. You should be able to do it for church.
That's right. That's right.
It's about God. Anyway.
That's right. And that's why I'm excited about this Easter.
Everybody said that, by the way. Even if I make fun of it, I promise you I've said it.
Probably. Because there's kernels of truth even in dumb things. So today I'm leading the topic, and as we've started, you guys don't know what I am going to bring up, but this is a way that I've done some work on this, and then I'm looking for some answers to a few questions as I read the story, but I'm also looking for any insight, so please feel free to interrupt if feel like there's something I missed. I probably did, so fill in any blanks or anything like that. But to get us started, we are going to try this, figure out what I am talking about today. You guys have 7 yes or no questions. And the getting to know you question was a little bit of a hint. Was a little bit of hint of what we're talking about today. So that gives you a little clue so that your 7 questions are a little bit better. So go ahead, ask me, who do you think we are talking about today?
I think you just gave it away for me. I'm going to see. Is this Samson?
Nailed it. First guess. Let's go. Okay, I probably shouldn't have given the hint.
I'm sorry. I feel like I ruined it.
No, don't. I love that. That's not what's supposed to go. We're learning. No, I think that's great. It means I'm either doing my job right or wrong, and only the future can tell. And sorry, Ryan, you didn't get a chance to guess. Were you thinking anything along those lines?
So I'm either dumb as a box of rocks, or I get like just frazzled when I get put on the spot because I wasn't thinking anything. I was like, oh gosh, like that was a hint. What hint could this have been? Like I'm gonna go with I'm frazzled because I don't really want to put out there that I'm dumb. So I got frazzled. How about that?
I think we all I do that socially.
Yeah.
So I want to weirdly affirm it. That I think some of us our different experiences within our educational system have taught us this is how certain type of people, the better people respond.
Yeah.
But you learn to respond, and this is an oversimplification, right? You learn to you if you say, I need you to create this hole, or here's the hole I need you to hit on a field. You weren't pausing and things like that. You were like, okay, let's do this. And the better you got at it, you started getting creative with it and stuff. And you might have been, we sometimes think before big events, we're nervous. I think we're often excited. And the experience is similar to nerves. So, but opposite, or another version of that is you're sitting in a classroom and let's say you're daydreaming, because that would be me, and then suddenly a teacher calls you out for some reason because they're jerks and they see that you're not really paying attention. And now all of a sudden, because it happens enough, you're now associating your own incompetence with a certain teaching style or certain expectation. We're not all supposed to have instant answers to everything. And I said, I do this socially. A guy just fixed our power at our house, and that was one of the more awkward conversations because I don't know how to talk to you. So I definitely go, I'm a social kind of moron.
Have you ever been electrocuted?
Right, exactly. That's me. I'm like, he's like, hey, here's this wire here, and kind of keep the dogs from it. And I'm pretty sure I said something, so tell him not to do jump rope with that wire. And he just kind of stares at me.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Just a dry delivery.
Right.
Yes, sir. I would not suggest that with any of these wires.
Yeah, exactly. No, and he was great. But anyway, I managed to make this about me somehow. But that's the beauty.
And that's what we're talking about today.
Anyway, go ahead.
Sin of pride. No.
But anyway, Ryan, I so unbelievably bright. I love how you think. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, so we are going to talk about Samson today. He's a very interesting figure, and there's a lot that we can talk about. And there's some backstory that we're going to bring up, and a couple questions that I have for you guys. Just first kind of glance at this. If you were to give a theme about the story of Samson, maybe you've preached on this, or maybe through your reading time, this is the thing that you feel like God has revealed as and again, I know there's a lot of things, but what would be the overarching theme that you would say is Samson, the story of Samson?
I would jump the whole book of Judges. Is a story of Israel's failure to be faithful to God, and it's the consequences of that, not necessarily, in my opinion, brought by God, but just by, in a sense, physics. If I step off a building, I fall. The consequence is an absolute, what's the word I'm looking for? Collapse. This, what should have been a theocratic culture, an absolute dissolution of the thing, completely falling apart as the process of Judges happens, and Samson somewhere in the middle, and he's an example of the separation from God. And the tension between faithfulness and unfaithfulness. Yeah,
it's good.
I think there are a lot of themes as far as Samson goes. Yeah, the book of Judges is about Israel's lack of faithfulness, but also God's willingness to redeem. And
his care.
I love, I love that. I think that the story of Samson is a microcosm of that.
Yeah.
I think time and time again we see Samson. He fails to obey instructions. He fails to do what God has asked him to do, but God still is with him. God still empowers him, even though he's sinning essentially, and God is still using him to accomplish these purposes. And so I think just as much as Israel is faith, like not being faithful, God is being just as he's like coming over the top with his faithfulness to Israel and redeeming them when they fall short. So
100%. Love that. Cool. I always like asking that because I feel that's going to help our audience understand even some of the perspectives that we're going to read into this, because there is a lot of themes in this, and as we're talking about it, this is just kind of where we're going to go from. So I'm on the right track with you guys. There's a few other things that I want to bring up that's alongside of those things, like how do we get into those messes, and then how does God redeem us out of those messes. So Samson is, man, he's a messed up person. It's one of those I like about the wholeness of the Bible is that the Bible itself, the writers don't shy away from very flawed people. So although we get David, and he's this worshiper, this warrior, this king, this faithful man of God, this God that understands God's heart, yet just falls on his face and has a massive failure. Abraham, like these strong structures of faith. And so, but Samson seemingly doesn't have even the redeemable parts like David or Abraham would have had, or any of these things. And so he's an interesting one, yet he has incredible power. And that's one of the themes we're going to kind of talk about today. But just kind of right on its face, we do get this is probably the outside of miracle works that we see often. This is one of those kind of superpower like individuals in the Bible, Hulk like, or ancient, figures, like I'm thinking of an Achilles, like like level of fame and power that's written into the Bible. What do we think about these figures and these supernatural abilities? Are they figurative? Are they literal? Again, we've asked some of these questions before. Some of it's not the point, but as we read it, do we need it to be literal? Do we need it to be figurative? And is it possible for us to gain these abilities still? What are some of our thoughts just on those supernatural abilities that Paul doesn't talk about later on in the New Testament?
I guess I've never really thought about that, like specifically with Samson. I never really thought about, like, was it literal super strength or was it figurative? I've always assumed it was literal, and I've always read it through the lens of it being literal, and it's just always made sense to me. Yeah. But also, like, now that I'm more well read on it and understand it a little more, like understanding like the super strength is connected to him having the Spirit of the Lord with him. And so like definitely supernatural. Can that still happen today? Like, or can we still operate in the, I don't see why not. I think God can do whatever he wants. But like, that's just an initial thought. And that's where I land. Like I read it as literal, and yeah, that's just my initial. So
yeah, I think hopefully this is in the line. So sometimes we take if an idea is true somewhere, then we assume then it's true over here, or it's not, and that those are the only two options. And again, I've talked about false dichotomies, and this is possibly a version of that. If I think that Samson's was only for that time, and then you mentioned Paul, if I jump forward and then go, okay, just like Samson, gifts of the Spirit are only for that time, I don't think we're doing great logic. There's no thematic connection between these two things, and so that I can see, other than you want it possibly to do the same thing.
What about the Spirit empowerment that like Spirit comes upon? Would you say those are connection pieces, and why a reader would stretch those across each other?
Yeah, but then there's no stop to it. You would have to say that the Spirit empowerment, if your goal is to say there are dispensations in which God does something and then doesn't do it in the next dispensation,
sure,
which is probably an oversimplification of dispensation idea, but and I don't know a ton about that stuff, but because I'm not a theologian, because I like myself, or I don't, whichever way it goes. Anyway, or I'm just not into that stuff. Anyway, to me, it's okay to say that
Yeah.
this thing was for Samson and for the time, and the reason is because Judges is doing that. If you need it to be not metaphorical, mythical in a sense, you can the idea that there are people throughout history. Greek is a great example of people. Somebody might have existed that had certain attributes that then were in the story essentially hyperbole. But even though it's not, I'm misusing that word, but you get the idea. Made bigger. So it doesn't mean that the person never existed. It's possible that the story was inflated. I'm not saying that about this particular story. It's just the thoughts about this. How do we get through this? The story is trying to describe something that whatever it is, it's using these things as illustrations. If you need it to be understood, maybe it's okay if you go, I think Samson was a spirit-empowered athlete. I mean, he clearly was a warrior, or the people who were fighting him were absolutely the most incompetent Keystone Cop people that, he's running around and fighting 1,000 people. And, it's also okay if 1,000 people died by a jawbone of an ass is hyperbole in that case. It doesn't make all cases not that. That is a tool that people use. And so anyway, I think the connection, if you're trying to connect those two things, it just doesn't. So I love Ryan pointing out it's the spirit empowerment. Can spirit empowerment happen today? Well, then you're saying, if you say no, you go, well, God can't or isn't doing. I don't know. Your logic doesn't flow. You don't need to have. If you don't like Pentecostalism, that's fine. But you still do believe the Spirit does stuff today, and these stories are informative but not connected.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think this kind of helps lay the groundwork for a large series of other stories that we're going to talk about. We got people, Jesus phasing through walls. We have teleportation. We got lots of stuff to kind of talk about later on.
Are you saying Jesus is Apocalypse?
Exactly.
From the Marvel universe.
And
I got canceled again.
No, you're good.
Somebody.
Yeah. If people don't know, Apocalypse is a villain in Marvel stories. So comic book stories. So people don't say that, you said Jesus is the literal apocalypse. Yeah. And so
he might be. He's the revealing.
There you go.
Back to the scroll.
Heck yeah. So there's what you just said, Greg. I for some of my agnostic atheist friends, I would say maybe more agnostic, that is some of the reasoning of, I believe in Jesus's teachings and that he was a real person, but he didn't do these things. And he was not the Son of God. And so there's an interesting, there is a separation, at least in our faith, clearly from Samson and Jesus, not only in lifestyle but divinity, and where the power comes from. It is still its original source, but then how that comes out and stuff. And so anyways, what I wrote down, again, just superhero, little cliche, with great power comes great responsibility. What we see in the book of Judges is a series of people called judges that are there to help the Israelites get out of some sort of specific problem, imprisonment. Someone's over, just over in power over the Israelites, and God sends somebody that is going to do something radical. So this could have been generals or diplomats, and in Samson's case, just a total degenerate. And so if you kind of read the book of Judges, when you read the first one, you go, this is a great person. We should get more of these. And then Samson's the last judge that we talk about in the book of Judges, and you're like, we should not have judges anymore. And so it's as you read it, there's an interesting way to look at it and go, oh, here's how we progressively get worse. And how, like you guys said, but there's always the redeeming power of God that he will use people, even in spite of our own problems, all this stuff. So
Mhm.
brief overview. I'm going to ask a few questions through this. Again, please feel free to cut in and fill in wherever I might be missing something important. Samson's born to a woman who's unable to become pregnant. An angel appears to her and says, hey, we're going to give you a child, but we need him. He's going to do something great for the Israelites. They're underneath a nation, a power called the Philistines at this time. And he says, this angel says, we need him to be set apart or special, so that he can do the thing. He can be holy. He can do what God is asking him to do because of this set apart nature. So not only just like he's going to have power, but he's going to be an example of, if he is set apart, if you are set apart, which is supposed to be the Israelite people, I have set you apart. You will be a light to the world in this way, which we'll see later on. But what he asked him to do, this angel asked the woman to do, is for Samson to follow a Nazarite vow. Do you guys know? I have some of them written down, but this comes from like number 6. Nazarite vows. Have you guys heard of this? Do you know anybody who's done this before?
No, that would be
No.
quite odd.
I knew somebody who I would say did this to the best of their ability. I interned at a church in Southwest Florida, and some of the basics of a Nazarite vow, abstaining from wine or strong drinks, and not only just not getting drunk, but just not partaking in it at all. So grape products or even like vinegar. Refrain from cutting the hair on your head, which it would get incredibly long then. So you have to tie it up into braids so that it could continue to grow. So what he did was he had dreadlocks, and they were getting pretty long. And then don't become ritually impure. So this would be contacts with something that is dead, even family members. And so you are, and so then there's a whole ritual practice to cleanse you if there was even an accidental touching or association with this. And there's a few other things, but those are kind of the big overviews. And you can go read number 6. You can kind of read more in depth, but these specifically are the ones that Samson is asked to live by. So
Yeah, real quick.
go ahead.
This, my understanding is these typically were short-term vows.
Yes.
And so you see this, probably a form of it in Paul. You see it in Acts when Paul goes and does something that's some type of ritual and does offerings, and then actually pays for other people to go through the process and things like that. It seems like these are connected, and so this lifelong you're going to exist as a Nazarite might be the exception.
Yes.
Rather than the rule.
Yeah, and in a little bit of my reading, it's an opportunity as like an act of thanksgiving to God as well. So it's just that people would identify you as set apart because of even on top of the what exists as commands and laws for the Israelites to live by, they even did more. And not because there was some place of authority that they lived at, or there was some promise of supernatural ability. It was an act of, I'm doing this. I would say probably in a way that in our Western church, we treat fasting. I think most people, again, there's a lot of ways to fast and to go about it. But I would say in our church times right now, it's an act of, hey, I want to show that I'm following. And just to let people know, you can also fast in order for clarity, direction, wisdom, things like that. So there is kind of a give and take in fasting, but most of us, I think, do it as an act of thanksgiving. Any thoughts, Ryan?
Nope, you summed it up great.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so Samson grows up, and he's been set apart, but almost immediately, at least in the narrative that we get right here, he just goes off the rails here. So he travels from his hometown to a Philistine town, sees a woman, goes, I want that, and and that's not a good thing. His parents tried to get him to marry within the existing town, the existing Israelites here, but he ignores their objections, and so. But there's a weird passage that is in this where God says he actually intends for Samson to get married to the Philistine woman, because it's part of his plan to strike at the Philistines. And so it's kind of we're going to see this build on top of each other, a little bit of God seemingly laying a groundwork in Samson's kind of off status, not living the way that he's supposed to. So then we start to see moments where Samson's seized by the Spirit and granting incredible strength. The first instance occurs when he is on his way to ask the Philistine woman for her hand in marriage. He's attacked by a lion. We don't know why. He goes off into this vineyard, again, not supposed to be around grapes, but he's around there anyways. There's this lion. He tears it apart. It says rips it, and then he keeps this a secret, which if you read about Samson later on, you feel like he would probably be when I think Samson, I think Gaston. I think like red shirt, yellow pants, like a ponytail, and just like the
My, what a guy, that's Samson.
Exactly. So he doesn't tell anybody. He proposes to this Philistine woman. He later returns for the wedding, and then on his way, he's like, "Hey, let's go see what happened over there. You know, what happened to this lion? Let's look at my last little." I'm reading a little bit into this, but let's look at what I've done before. He stops to examine the lion carcass. Again, not supposed to be around dead things. And not only that, sees that some bees have built a hive inside the carcass, reaches in, eats the honey, and then also takes some honey and shares it with his parents. And despite the Nazirite vow, that's just, don't give dead carcass honey bees to anybody. I think that's actually the theme of this story, is don't do that, right? No? Okay. At the wedding, he tells a riddle about this experience. He randomly chooses like 30 groomsmen, which are all Philistine men. And he's getting drunk. He's like enjoying this, and he says, "Hey, if you answer this riddle about me killing a lion that nobody knows that I did, and it's this kind of weird veiled thing, I'll if you answered, I'll give you 30 like linen garments, 30 pieces of clothing. If you don't, you have to give me 30 pieces of clothing." They're unable to answer. For some reason, get super frustrated at this. And so they go to Samson's now wife and say, "Hey, if you need to get the answer from your husband. If you don't get it, we're going to kill you and your father." She pleads to Samson. Samson answers. Again, a little bit of foreshadowing of Samson kind of falling to women asking him to do stuff. This seems to be a much bigger problem in his life later on. And that's not to say like husbands, you should keep things from your wives. No, like Samson he's already just has a problem with women later on.
Yeah.
So they get the answer, groomsmen answer. Samson gets frustrated. Another act of power happens, but this one is he goes out and kills 30 random Philistine men, takes their clothes, and then gives them to his groomsmen. He then, this is such a strange part, he's furious, and he leaves his wife and father, but then just goes, "Hey, I want to have sex with my wife." So comes back, but in the process, since Samson just left, and this father can't just leave his daughter unprotected. At the time here, she hands him over to one of Samson's groomsmen, his best man, basically. And so Samson comes back and, "Let me sleep with my wife." And he's like, "Well, I've already given her away." Samson becomes furious again, and so he captures 300 foxes, ties their tails together into 150 pairs, sets them on fire, and releases them into a field that belongs to the father or to the town, and it burns all the crops down. Townspeople get mad. murders Samson's wife and father-in-law. Samson seeks revenge and then just goes, and we don't get a number, but just starts killing Philistine people into this town. Okay. Goes to, I'm going as quick as I can because there's a lot of exploits. I want to get to some of the deeper questions here. He retreats to a cave. Nation of Judah brings an army and says, Samson, hey, Philistines are pissed off that you did this, rightly so, but they are our enemies, and they have a greater power over this. We have to turn you over to them. Samson agrees, and so they tie him up, turn him over. Samson breaks the ties and just kills 1,000 Philistine men with the jawbone of a donkey, of an ass. And so this is Samson. Like, this is what we're dealing with here. And then we're about to get into probably the most well-known part of the story. But here's just kind of a question as we're reading this narrative structure so far. I think this is an appropriate question. Why is God not punishing Samson? Yet, in fact, it seems the opposite. He's letting him keep use Holy Spirit empowered or Spirit empowered works on him. Well, why do you guys think this is happening? Why is he letting him do this? He's already, I mean, basically at this point, the only thing he hasn't done is at least that we read, he hasn't cut his hair. But he's done everything else wrong. So if he's supposed to be set apart, not doing it, why is God not punishing? Or are we not supposed to ask that question yet?
Well, according to the Nazarite law in number 6, the person who took the vow is supposed to cut their hair if they're defiled, if they defile themselves with drinking the wine or, going near wine or the dead bodies or whatever. However they defile themselves, they're supposed to cut their own hair. And he doesn't do that. So he's not following the vow that he took, right? And so I wonder if there's some form of like God's not going to betray his own vow type thing. Like, as long as he made this vow, as long as he has the hair, like, he's going to keep being empowered or that kind of thing, and in the Nazarite law in number 6, it says, when you defile yourself, you're supposed to bring sacrifices and then shave your head. And then once the hair grows back, then you reaffirm your commitment to the vow, that kind of thing. And so maybe God is waiting for Samson to do the right thing as far as like keeping his end of the vow and like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And maybe he's giving him opportunities, extending grace to, okay, do the right thing, that's just off the top of the head.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, I think a weirdly good answer is we don't know.
Sure.
And I don't want to blow it off at all. There's maybe it's more useful to recognize the tensions, and the tensions are Israel's in trouble. Let's be honest, of their own making. We often as individuals are in that too, and as a country, or as whatever, however you want to break it down, we're the ones who make choices. So Israel's there, and there are leaders that are rising up for whatever reason. They're being labeled as judges, but again, this is a story of people falling away while God is being faithful. And so his goal at this point in each little segment of Israel's being dominated by the Philistines, and so God's going to give them another chance in a sense, and help that oppression break, at least for a little bit, until they decide to go back into it. And the guy who's picked, chosen, anointed, whatever you want, to do it is a deeply flawed. If I met him today, I would bet that he either had unbelievable helicopter parents, and he was raised as an incredible brat who never had to take responsibility for his own actions, and I don't mean this negatively, but it is a consequence. I think some of our athlete situations where a really good athlete almost never has to think about what they're going to eat, where their clothes going to come from, even before NIL. And talking to two, I haven't had a ton of conversations, but two who came out of D1 programs that it was almost like coming out of the military where everything's taken care of you for you. And now suddenly, you know, you have to take care of yourself, and either you have some wisdom, but if you've never learned consequence of your actions, if you can always use your strength or whatever it is to dominate things, intellect, whatever it is, you don't need to handle this burden. And so this is Samson. He clearly isn't thinking about the woman he married. It comes back much later to the point that she's already married to someone else. You know, this sense of what is owed him, and his lack of responsibility. So why would God? The tension then is, why would God's Spirit continue to show up? That's the part we don't really understand, because even though our children's church props Samson, and then I would add Gideon up as heroes, the story are not heroic stories. That he kills 1,000 people with the jawbone of a dead donkey is a really interesting story and would be great on film. But that's not a heroic story.
No,
that's because he threw a fit and offended people with no care, and then used the strength of God to go do damage to a large group of people. So, and I'm reading that definitely from my perspective. I was just thinking about how would, if I was there, how would I read this? And I think if I was in Israel, I'd be like, oh, we were set free. Yeah, this guy died. And so in that sense, he's a hero to me as a Hebrew, because I'm getting set free. But you don't want your kids to act like him. So, anyway.
Totally. Well, there's an interesting kind of thought in this, or I don't know. You guys tell me maybe. But allowance doesn't necessarily mean endorsement.
Well, I was gonna say, I think your question can lead to, I mean, we can totally apply that to today, right? I immediately, when you asked why didn't God punish Samson, I jumped to Robert Morris and everything that's going on with him and the sexual assault allegations from the 80s. And Robert Morris was allowed to pastor a church and grow a church of tens of thousands of people. And why wouldn't God have punished him for his thing? And like you said, Greg, like, we don't know, like, and that, as unsatisfying as it is, I think that's the best conclusion to come to. We don't know, but God is at work at something bigger here. And if God was only going to use people who didn't mess up, then God wouldn't use anybody. Right. And so, like, God is going to accomplish his purposes no matter what, no matter the vessel, no matter how broken the vessel is, he's going to accomplish his purposes. And so I think that's one of the takeaways too, like, is not like, let's look at how awful Samson is. Let's look at how great God is, that he can take somebody who doesn't give a crap about the vow he made, and God is still going to use that person to accomplish his ultimate goal. So that's kind of the thing that came to mind for me.
100%. I kind of a continued question after this, and this is one of these themes I really wanted to kind of sit on. So there's one more, and we'll breeze through that next one, because I don't want to be here for an hour and a half. For those who are listening, you probably read this story, but I think this brings up an interesting conversation point. There's a lot of stories like this where God uses a very flawed person in order to accomplish his divine goal, like something that he is trying to do, which is bring his people back to him. That is his purpose over and over again. That is how to read Judges. God is trying to redeem humanity. He uses people to do this. Do we need this type of person post Jesus? Because I think there's a lot of time that we kind of look at very flawed people in churches, or political situations, and so I've even heard with this administration, people compare our president to King Cyrus, and go like, yeah, like, God uses a very flawed person to bring about justice in a nation, and this is what God wants to do, and we're this. But there's some, if I can kind of maybe be a voice of some of our listeners who that's not their natural, and there seems to be a confliction in their spirit between the ethics of a person versus and then where they seem to derive their morality from, which is claims to be to Christian in this. Do we really need a flawed person to redeem God's people when we have a perfect person who redeemed God's people in Jesus? Do you think he's still taking flawed people and needing them to do something that Jesus didn't do? Or I don't know. These are some of my questions. I know this is a deeper one, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah. Every word has something, right? Need. I don't know. I'd use the word need. Does he? Yeah. If any of us have a mission, then he does.
Yeah.
Move in us, call us, give us a mission. While we're deeply flawed. One of the answers that I have to why does God allow bad things to happen? And this really isn't an answer, but much as a response, which are definitely can be different. Is mostly because I want to do what I want. Why is it allowed? Because I want it to be allowed. And I want to isolate evil that isn't my evil, and be okay-ish with mine, as long as I can say I'm sorry on a Sunday. And so I can kind of whatever with that, as long, but you need to go get these people who are doing it wrong. Do I switch to do judges in our terms might be heroes, leader heroes, need Captain America. We may want it, but then, and some of the comic books have done some work on this, the rejection of the heroes, that we quickly forget the benefit and start bemoaning the damage that they cause, and the recognizing the flaws of the humanity, and we want heroes, and then we want to destroy heroes, and then for some reason we want to prop up false heroes, people who are clearly not people that we want to be, nor would we want our children to be. But then we throw away our ethics and morals and the whole thing, and we begin to change the fundamental documents, such as our reads on Scripture. And now we water down Scripture so that we can include situations that aren't okay. We remove certain standards while holding fast to others, and soften things. And so we move that individual from a form of Messiah to now Cyrus. And well, it's
heard both.
Right. And there's no, I don't want to express, it is a thing. And so do we need heroes? We want heroes. We do have Jesus. He does do work. People, there's still work to do. And the process of hero is through Jesus, servant. And in Samson, you see zero servant, zero Torah, breaking purposely of Torah is what you also see in Solomon. Purposeful direct breaking of every rule that inspired, and very much representative of me, and then of Israel before. And so this is my version of conspiracy, by the way, is the ongoing cycle, but it's mindlessness. So anyway,
it's a conspiracy that like lives within humanity. Ryan, what do you got?
Yeah. So first, Greg, I think that's a great way to start. Like, does God need? No. God chooses to use us. And I'm thinking about it in terms of the Spirit of the Lord, right? So God chose to have the Spirit of the Lord on Samson to accomplish his purposes. Well, with that in mind, and thinking about what Jesus said, Jesus empowered his disciples to do the work by filling them with his Spirit. And so as Christ followers today, we are filled with the Spirit to do his work. I think of Acts chapter 1 verse 8, like I'm gonna give you the power to go be my witnesses. Like he's given us the Spirit to do his work. And so just like in this story with Samson, God chooses to use people, but it's not just like he's rising a person up. Like we're all that person now. Yeah, we're all that person if we have the Spirit of God in us. And as far as like God rose up, this person to change the country, maybe, but like, is God really interested in our politics? Probably not. What's God interested in? He's interested in lost people finding him. You know what I mean? And so like if that's not the lens through which you're seeing things, like you need to check yourself, because you're getting really close to like false teaching, false doctrine, that kind of thing. And so maybe I answered your question, maybe not, but that's just what
these are great. I think there's just a lot of confusion out there, whether it is an outright church leader or someone who claims a Christian way of life. They would claim a followership to Jesus, yet seemingly don't, and then yet God still ends up using them, or using even their false ways to accomplish his purposes. And we kind of only see that in somewhat of the way we read Samson, which is this outside view. It has to be removed as much as possible, but it's hard to see it when we're in it.
So I think there's this view too, that like, because people like, now I'm going to start name dropping. This is not insulting at all, but like guys like Stephen Furtick or Andy Stanley, or, any of the celebrity pastors out there who have these huge followings, and like in person, they have these huge congregations, or on social media, that somehow there's people who believe that somehow they're more anointed, and God has risen them up to lead a generation because they're out there more. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like there's just because we don't read about people in the Bible who were doing these amazing things doesn't mean that they weren't being faithful too, doesn't mean that they weren't doing their best to try to follow God. You know what I mean? Like I think of who was it? I think Jeremiah, maybe the prophet Jeremiah, where he's I'm probably mixing prophets at this point, but maybe it's Elijah, but he's crying about how like, oh, I'm the only faithful one. And then God's like, yeah, Elijah. Yeah. I'm the only faithful one. And God's like, nope, there's 7,000 more just like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't hear about the 7,000.
Right.
Like we don't hear stories about them, but they're just as faithful. They're doing the work. They're just doing it in the context God has put them in. And so, like I think, is this a warning against celebrity pastors? No, it's more of like just because the three of us aren't famous doesn't mean like the work we're doing isn't just as valid or impactful.
Amen. Yeah. The leaders are just supposed to be examples of integrity. I think integrity is a word that we can attribute to Samson, but the leaders that we really appreciate, that God uses in the Bible, we appreciate their integrity and faithfulness to what God is calling. So although conflicted with their humanity, they still choose to the best of their ability faithfulness. And so just as a little aloe to the sunburn that some people might be feeling on whatever that looks like. Maybe you've been hurt by the church and you love one of the three of us, so you're listening to this podcast. Let me give you just a quick word from Psalms 37 that I love. It says, "Don't worry about the wicked or envy those who do wrong, for like grass, they will soon fade away. Like spring flowers, they will soon wither. Trust in the Lord and do good. Then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires." So what we see in the story of Samson and so many others that may have hurt us or hurting people that we love, some of the conflicting thing is you feel like they're living by a desire of their heart, maybe not the Lord's heart, or how you've come to know who the Lord is. Some of the importance of reading the Bible is you learn God's heart, you learn what he's caring for. And so, yes, there is probably something, I would call it the Holy Spirit deep inside you, that when you feel a conflict, you may not know the whole Bible, but you see a conflict on your understanding of what love and hope and peace and prosperity and all of this stuff really means. That's probably right. Instead of just that being the end of the conversation, go look deeper, go into this, and then know that God's way is going to be good. Look towards him, not just to the problems in this world. So Samson, one of the biggest problems that he has is with women. He meets a woman named Delilah, and Delilah just outright uses Samson. She's a Philistine woman, and through a couple different interactions, she is trying to figure out what it is that powers Samson, what it is that gives him the ability to kill 1,000 Philistine men. And she has been basically sent on a mission to find this information out by the Philistines several different times. She tries to figure it out. Samson gives a lie, and most of these surround the idea of tying him up. Samson breaks these ties every single time. Delilah calls on Samson because the Philistines are going to attack. Samson breaks the ties, and she becomes distraught. Oh, why would you lie to me? Why would you do this? And then he goes, no, babe, I promise. Hey, let me tell you. So again, over and over again, finally just kind of reaches a pinnacle point. Samson breaks and tells the truth.
Megan.
Yeah, exactly. If my hair is cut, then I will lose all of my power. Delilah then one night cuts all his hair. Samson, the Philistines are upon you, is the line in the Bible. And Samson realizes that the strength of God has left him, that the Spirit has left him. There's have you guys ever heard of the spirit of Delilah?
I've heard people go spirit of Jezebel, spirit of
yeah. So
you don't need them. It doesn't do any work. Anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely. And so the idea, I think it's just because we will come to this conversation most likely over time, but just since we're introducing it a little bit in church settings, the previous church before the one they were in now that we started, it's used to explain someone who has a demonic spirit on them of manipulation, or especially through like sexual means. And in my experience is only applied to women, but it's not outright said that it's only women. But I've never seen it applied to a dude who manipulates through sex. So, but this is there's something in this. When you guys hear that, maybe somebody says that, well, she or he has a spirit of Delilah on them. What would be your response? Well, what would be, as pastors, but also just here on the Odd Testament, how would you coach that conversation, knowing who Delilah is and what she does? I'm getting into it. I'm asking the deep questions, guys.
I haven't really heard it before, and I'm not around a lot of what I'll characterize and maybe stereotype as the prophetic bent of, I don't know. And I'm trying to I'm going slow with my words because I don't want to express too much just opinion. There's no data to give us anything like this term or to draw this conclusion. You could say, let's say you're writing and you used as a metaphor the spirit. Is it possible that we have something similar that we see in Delilah working in your life right now? You might oversimplify and say that, are you a manipulator? Do you find yourself seeing your value in your body and therefore you're going to exert power that way? While it's understandable in that you're trying to gain some control over situations, at which point are you just not responding to an emotional situation, but instead you are actively using it to control things. Is this healthy for you and others? Do you want the best for others? So going to to stop that and go to the story. We don't have the data I'm getting ready to say, but it is Delilah this deep spy who, almost like we have in World War II, women who are behind the scenes really working things and stuff. Is this Delilah, or is she a woman? It seems to be. Actually, we do have the data. Do we have a woman who was in relationship with Samson, who then the wealthy Philistines came and manipulated, and said, we're going to hurt you if you don't do what we say? Then the spirit, from that point of view, the spirit of Delilah would be, are you being oppressed by people and then responding to it because you just don't want to die? It seems to be the spirit of Delilah from Scripture.
Yeah. I'm smiling and nodding my head because that is I think in my experience, I'll preface it with that. The term is primarily used when it seems like a woman is manipulating a leader in the church, or she has come out with an accusation against a leader in the church, and in order to defend the leader, they'll say that this woman is trying to take down a man of God in order to hurt God's people. And so then it also becomes a way of justifying hiding the things that have come out from it and making these people the villains in the story, when the leader is the one responsible to be with integrity. So what is the origin? Did some in this hypothetical situation, let's say we have a leader in a church and somebody comes and flirts with them, tempts them, gets in their DMs, says, let's hang out sometime. And then the leader and that person goes and does that. Whose fault? Both. But who's the one who is supposed to be responsible for God's people and have the calling on them? The leader. And so I think very quickly look to the person who, quote unquote, did the first deed, and not look at, these are both people who have not handled this situation well, have not done this the way that God has asked. If you want to call it a spirit of Delilah, I would agree. Let's call it the person who's been manipulated. And yes, who knows? Delilah's a prostitute, probably looked at big, fancy, handsome, strong Samson and said, I could live a good life with having that, and then again is tempted again with finances and security. So yeah, anyways, go ahead, Ryan.
My opinion, the whole spirit of the Delilah thing, stupid. Deception, manipulation. No one else in the Bible has done that. Abraham, Jacob, countless
David.
other people, right? Like no one else has done that, just Delilah. What I think we're seeing is the condition of the human heart. And so this isn't a spirit of Delilah thing. This is a spirit of humanity thing. Like this is we have another window into the heart of humanity here, and it's deception, it's manipulation, it's like all that, and like you guys said, like is she doing it out of the malice of her heart, or is she like forced into the situation? Like it's
even then she didn't go find Samson and bring him to Philistia.
Right.
It's more likely that, in my opinion, that Samson created this potential problem for her. This is all on Samson. And if you want, it's on the guys who bribed her and forced her into this. Does she have agency? Yes. I don't want to steal that from her. She made her choices, but most of us would do the same thing. So anytime I get a large hairy guy, I'm assuming he's large, and he's like, hey, I like you, and I'm like, I'm not into it, dude. And then rich people are like, no, get him to cut his hair. It's a struggle for me. So I guess I have the spirit of Delilah.
I remember in a message that you did, Greg, you said some of you are afraid with a gay guy hitting on you, but women aren't even hitting on you.
You think they're hunting you down?
Yeah, you're not good looking enough for people to do that, so don't be worried. Okay, besides the point. No, these are great. Let me wrap up the story here. Samson's captured. They gouge out his eyes, they cut his hair, and they force him into acts of labor. In that
Which-
meantime, go ahead. Yeah,
Really quickly, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
go. No, go.
They gouge out his eyes, they cut his hair. If trying to read it from the perspective of an Israelite, I would see that moment as like, oh, there's some hope, the cutting the hair, because that's a chance for him to reaffirm his commitment according to the Nazarite law in Numbers 6. So like I see the end of, I think it's what, verse 22, verse 22 in number or Judges 16. I'm like, oh, is that an opening for something? So that's
Love
just
that.
my initial inclination. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a cool reading to, although forced upon him, he now has to confront all of the choices that he made, but has an
real
option of redemption.
consequences of apparently his whole life.
Correct. And now is in a deep place of a bottom pit. He is at rock bottom, and probably deeper now. So now he is used as a tool, essentially, to like as almost a propaganda piece within the city of the nation, to show how great we are. We beat this strong man of God. We are winners. There's big
They diminish
celebrations.
him to an animal.
Yes.
Yeah. He becomes livestock.
Absolutely. And so this final kind of act of Samson's life is his hair begins to grow back. And on this, he starts gaining the power of God upon him, and he essentially asks God, if I can do one more thing, if this is the what I can do, help me, to give me the power to do this. And as he's brought in front of the people, he puts his hands on pillars, and begs God for this moment. Please, God, please strengthen me just one more time. With one more blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my two eyes.
Which is the first time we hear him praying, which
absolutely,
maybe that's intentional, maybe it's not, maybe I'm reading into it a little bit, but I just think that's interesting.
Yeah,
the first time we ever hear about him praying. So anyways,
yeah, and not the cutting of his hair, not the deception of Delilah, for removing my sight, for the pain that they've inflicted upon me. So then Samson put hands on two pillars, verse 29 in chapter 16, that held the temple up, pushing them with both hands. He prayed, let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down, and the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire life. Okay, so let's wrap it up here with this statement a little bit. God will use whomever he chooses for a greater purpose. And oftentimes these very flawed people don't even have the right motivations, don't have the right integrity, don't have the right moralities, yet God still does amazing things through these people. I love the redemption opportunity that Samson has in front of him. My optimistic part of my brain goes, here is an opportunity for and Samson's choice right here wasn't purely selfish. He didn't want to just kill people. He wanted to do what God wanted to do. So anyways, this is the story. This is Samson. We would love to hear what your guys' thoughts on this. Make sure to put it in the comments of YouTube, and let us know, what did you get out of the story? What stuck out to you? Maybe give us some questions or some thoughts of yours that we can talk about in a further podcast, because there are stories just like this in the Bible, and we're going to talk about these flawed people, these odd stories that God gives us in order to learn more about him and how he wants to live with us.
Getting to know you. Sorry. I'm not sorry.
yes, Greg pointed out too in Judges 15 that Samson prayed another time, and so like I was wrong, guys. I'm sorry.
You're good. Awesome. Well, that's it for me today. Thanks for letting me give you guys the story of Samson. Hopefully I didn't take one from you guys, but
It
now
was
we have
alright,
it
I
checked
guess.
off.
It was all right.
No, yeah,
Whatever.
no, it was good, man. And I love the point you made at the end that God will use whoever he chooses.
Yeah.
And we'll maybe get into this another time, but that immediately triggered thoughts of the book of Ezra, how God spoke to Cyrus, a non-Israelite king, about rebuilding the temple, rebuilding the wall in Jerusalem. Like God's own people were so far from him that he had to go outside of his people to make that happen. And that just drives home the point to me that God is going to use whoever he wants to accomplish his purposes. And so, yeah, I love that. I love that thought, man. So
Awesome.
so
Take
cool.
us out,
Well,
Ryan.
I affirm you.
I hate that word.
all right. If you are enjoying the Odd Testament podcast, we would love your support. The best way to help us keep bringing all this odd, inspiring, thought-provoking content is by showing us some love. And here's how you can do that. First, take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, whatever, wherever you get wherever you get your podcast, rate and review us. Please, 5-star review. We don't want anything else. If it's a 1-star, just tell us in the review why it's a 1-star, but give us 5 stars. That'll help get our attention, and that'll get the podcast out to more and more people. Next, don't forget to subscribe, subscribe, hit the notification bell wherever you listen, just so you stay up to date on all our latest content. New episodes come out every single Monday, and so stay up to date with us. And finally, follow us on social media: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all the shorts and all that, Facebook. We're on all those platforms. Follow us for maybe behind the scenes content one day. Maybe we'll start doing stuff like that. Who knows? Yeah, my MySpace. Guys, I didn't even think about that. I got to create a MySpace page.
AOL.
Yeah. Instant Messenger. Yeah. So
And you can find us at the Odd Testament podcast on all the platforms. So just type in Odd Testament podcast. You might get a lot of different things. So
and like Eric said, if you ever have any questions or you want to reach us, oddtestamentpod@gmail.com. That goes right to us, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to talk about what you want to talk about sometime. And so yes, your support means the world to us. And again, together we can continue bringing all this weird content to the world. So guys, thank you so much for hopping on with me today. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.